Live from PBS North Coast Studio, Homework Hotline is on the air. Homework Hotline is your opportunity to get help with your math and science problems. Call 497-5044 to be on the Homework Hotline.
Welcome to Homework Hotline. My name is Amy Taylor, and I teach 7th and 8th grade math at Sunnybrae Middle School in Arcata.
My name's Pam Halstead, and I taught science at Fortuna High School. We're so happy that you guys are looking and tuning in and seeing what we've got for you. We're excited for you to call us.
Yes.
With your math and science questions.
Yes. Call us at 497-5044, and we will answer your science and math questions. Science and math.
Yes.
Or interwoven, the STEAM thing.
Yeah, the STEAM, exactly. Now, on Tuesday when we were here, we had some announcements, Is there anything else, or is it?
Yeah, it was just, I ended up talking about the Math Festival
Yes.
that is April 6th from 12 to 4 at the Adorney Center. Tammy Masamoto, Ken Pinkerton are kind of in charge or whatever, but they're so wonderful and they get everybody to come out for it. I will be doing a bendy straw polyhedra booth. I always work there and I have so much fun, and I have kids that come volunteer for me from the middle school, but then they disappear because it's so much fun. They just get so involved in everything, and I'm so happy they're having fun. I'm like, whatever, volunteer, just enjoy yourself, and there's just so many different activities for all ages. I mean, really, adults have a wonderful time, small toddlers, and it's 12 to 4, April 6th at the Adorney Center, and you should come out and
Definitely.
enjoy it.
That's going to be awesome. Very cool. So we on Tuesday we had Sierra Jenkins, who spoke about Pack Out Green Team, Green Team, we're wearing green.
And spring.
Yes, and spring, of course. Both things work. And she spoke about how it's a really cool thing and good to remove trash, because trash that ends up in waterways ends up affecting organisms badly. So yeah, that's important. So our topic today is about a specific waterway in Humboldt County, and this one is called Liscomb Slough.
Okay.
Yeah, and Liscomb Slough runs through the Arcata Bottom. So you might be thinking, Liscomb Slough. Actually, there's a slide before this, who was Liscomb. I'm pretty sure it says something about habitat, but don't worry about it. This is a great slide to start with. Okay, so you can see right here that they're standing on a bridge, and we're basically in the Arcata Bottoms, which is the place where all the cows hang out, and there's dairy cows and things.
In the marsh, right?
In the marsh.
Yeah.
Well, the marsh is close. Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, close. Oh, yeah, close. Yeah,
right.
It says.
So the question is, why did they name it Liscomb Slough? Well, this guy was a captain in the 1812 War of 1812, and he came over here in 1847 for the gold rush, and he came over from Vermont. It's crazy to imagine how people did that kind of stuff. This is before everybody.
Months.
Oh, for sure.
Years.
It's insane. Yeah, going by ship, it took forever long, and then if you had to go by horse carriage, yeah, it was crazy. So here's the deal with him. He traveled to Humboldt County, like I said, during the gold rush, and then he settled. His family, he left him in Vermont for a while, and then he first started in Blue Lake, and there's a place in Blue Lake called Liscomb Hill. But then when he came back, because he went and got his family, came back and he ended up settling in Arcata on a 320-acre ranch in the Arcata Bottoms, and that's part of the ranch. What you see there, that barn, that's just part of his whole. That is not, it wasn't his barn, because that's a long time ago, but it still shows you kind of the area where he was. And he raised potatoes in the bottoms, and he raised them, and he boated them down this piece of water right here, and to send them to San Francisco. And San Francisco was a booming city that needed supplies, and so potatoes were an important supply, and it took 24 hours to get by boat from Humboldt County to San Francisco.
Wow.
By boat, I don't know, to ship something.
Oh my gosh,
that's yeah, it is amazing. So it started out as a transportation route, like
nice.
a slough, yeah. But then the question is, what is a slough? And we'll talk about what is a slough. So first off, slough is kind of a weird name, because it looks like either you could pronounce it slough or slough, but I have here that it is a creek in a marsh or tide flat. So there it is. We've got a couple of egrets, which are birds that are using it for vital habitat, and it's important because it is a place where lots of creatures use it for breeding, for feeding, and for shelter. All those things are really important for them.
Does it have like more mud, or can it be
tons of mud?
Yeah, so then other things can feed on the bottom.
Yeah, they can, and that mud's really important because little worms and crustaceans go into the mud, and then things try to feed on that, and that's. I think those egrets that you saw, they were going for fish probably. Is there something by
Is the slough, but at the Arcata Marsh, does that kind of feed off of that? Like, do you get marshy land from sloughs because of the wet?
Yes, yes. In fact, one of the words for slough, when you look it up in the dictionary, is a swamp. Which is another word for marsh.
Okay,
it's kind of a negative word for marsh, but still, it's really important.
Similar wet,
yeah, similar
muddy.
wetlands, yeah, for sure. And I have a map, I think, of the whole thing where it shows that the Liscomb Slough goes into and it feeds into the Mad River Slough.
Oh, okay.
And then the Mad River Slough feeds into the Arcata Bay. And the Arcata Bay is just all part of Humboldt Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And you've been there, right? I mean, the kinetic sculpture race actually goes right over that bridge and right by there. Yeah. Yeah, so it's cool. All right, so this is, as all sloughs are, this is vital habitat. It's a place where saltwater and freshwater mix. So that big blue thing that says Mad River Slough is the big slough that Liscomb Slough feeds into. It's kind of hard to see, but where it says Arcata Bottoms there, below Foster Avenue, there it goes
above
winding,
Homework Hotline.
Right above Homework Hotline, there goes Liscomb Slough, and it winds around, it goes over the road, and then it goes into Mad River Slough, which then ends up going into the bay, which is down below. So the ocean's over there to the left all the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really important because it's providing this place for feeding and breeding and shelter. So all those things. Yeah. So hey, you guys, if you have any questions. Hey, there's a great example of breeding and actually feeding, probably. These are sardines. And this is in a big sort of pothole that happened in the slough because somebody went off in their car and landed in the slough. And when they pulled the car out, there was a giant hole left over, like just in the mud.
Okay.
You know, kind of
and
down there.
These guys just
yeah, they came in for, you know, maybe breeding purposes. And so here's just a bunch of them. And it was kind of a nice place for them all to hang out because there's lots of water. So there's sardines as far as for breeding. Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's herring, and there's also a fish called a smelt, which is another cool one.
Nice.
Don't forget, you guys, math and science questions. If you want to call us, 497-5044. We love to talk about the slough, but we'd also like to answer your questions. So, all right. So there's a picture of sardines, which is a cool animal that uses the slough as its breeding and feeding ground. And then if we go to the next slide, we have a picture of this really super important plant. This is called eel grass, and it's in the bay, it's in the slough, and a lot of creatures lay their eggs on it, which provides kind of a shelter or an attachment place for the eggs to develop, or it's eaten by birds like brant, which is a kind of sea goose. It's a black goose.
Can they also kind of hide in it?
Hiding is very important because what if and also that keeps it cooler, the whole place cooler, because it's kind of providing shade for anybody that's underneath it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, in this picture you can see the mud for sure. Yeah, that it's there, but that's a really good place for the eel grass to be. So eel grass important. Very good. All right, so we can continue with the slideshow, and here's another group of creatures that's kind of hard to see, but these are crabs.
Yes.
Yeah, and at times in the summertime, like right around when the summer solstice is, which is around June 21st, these crabs, they come out, they have basically molted, they were born there, they come out, and they're going through, are going into the ocean. So basically you can stand on the bridge and just watch tons of them coming down. And these could be Dungeness crab, they could be some of them rock crab. So it's just amazing how important this place is for all these different creatures. It's pretty cool. They're tiny at this point. You wouldn't want to eat them, but they'll turn into big creatures in the ocean.
So they'll go back out then?
Yeah, they'll become adults in the ocean. Okay. So when the crabbers go out, they go out to the ocean to catch the adults, the delicious adults, yeah.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any point because there wouldn't be, I mean, as far as eating, there would be no meat. And
no meat.
But doesn't that what like the salmon do too? I mean, there's different processes where they're in freshwater or saltwater.
So it's like being anadromous, which is the using freshwater and saltwater both.
And then is it like they say like a brackish water. Is some of that stuff where it's like partial salt, partial fresh?
Yes. Okay. And this is tidal, so it is affected by the tide coming in. It gets really salty, and then when the tide goes out, it's pretty much just fresh water.
And that's why the crab can live in there, because they're used to being in that ocean, but then they can come in and have kind of that mixed brackish water and then go back. Oh.
Yeah, it's a good place to develop and get used to something like salt water.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. So crabs, nice place for them. And you recognize this bird because they're out in the fields right now. Yeah, that's right. Someone in the studio is making the noise of these birds. These are really cool birds. They are called Aleutian cackling geese. Oh. So these are, I know. How would you know that? Yeah, sorry. It's a kind of goose, okay? And it's specifically a sort of a variation on the Canada goose thing.
Okay.
The difference is they're smaller and they have a little white collar around them. But they love the fields there. They eat grass. They're waiting right now.
And the fields are more wet because of the slough then, right? Does that affect it?
Yeah,
does it
sometimes. I think the water is absorbed. Okay, well, let's be honest here. Before there was a slough, that whole area used to be covered by the bay, period. It just was. And I have a date here when they put in 1906. In 1906, they put in these dikes, which are areas where, so the slough just flows instead of flooding everything.
Okay.
And that was, so that keeps it from flooding that area.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
So it doesn't, but sometimes when the tides are high, it does, get flooded.
Get wetter.
So, yeah, right. And so they're in another, like in the middle of April, they'll be flying to the Aleutian Islands up in Alaska and having their babies. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's fun.
I know, it's crazy. And they used to be endangered, but they took away the fox, which was like non-native to these islands they're on, so they got rid of the fox. They had cats, things that like to eat them, and now they're doing great.
Yeah, that was a lot in that picture.
I know, there were a lot in the picture. There's a whole bunch for sure. What are you guys working on in your math class?
We could do, I actually teach a lot of different math classes. I can do some similar triangles. We can do some geometry.
Cool. Nice.
So basically they've changed in like kind of middle school in terms of, we'll just do a little shape thing. So basically what we learn in middle school is something called transformational geometry, and the reason we do that is because we want to learn that we can translate things. And then over time, what happens with transformational geometry is if you're doing something crazy like a sine wave and you're like in calculus and you learn to translate, you can just slide that and you just learn more about things like that. And what's nice with Common Core and what they're trying to do and with integrated is to be able to like use this vocabulary all the way through your math and science classes and engineering classes all the way up. So what we started off this year is we basically learned that we could take this triangle and then we could possibly translate it, say like to the right and up. So that's that word translate, translation. And then we can say things like, then we'll rotate 180 degrees. So then we can rotate it. So it would basically be sitting here. And then we, obviously graph paper is a little better for this, but then you get the idea. And then we can rotate it 180 degrees about this like center. So now the triangle's here. So then that, and usually we say rotation like about like a center. And then the other thing we can do is reflect. So if we wanted to instead, we could have like reflected it over a line like a mirror. And then the last thing we learn is about dilations. And dilations basically just means that I'm going to take this, like you dilate your eye at the eye doctor, bigger, smaller. You only do bigger at the eye doctor, but smaller reduction in math classes or enlargement. And now we take this center that's now called the center and we stretch it and we make this all longer. So then this goes out and out and out and it just dilates. It becomes bigger. So then we say dilation from center. And then what we've been doing recently instead is we've been looking at things to make them similar. Similar means that they have equal angles, right? They all have equal angles and then they get bigger and their sides are called proportional to each other. Congruent is a word that makes them the same, like these two, if I did it perfectly, would be congruent. So what we've been learning, our test this week in 8th grade is the fact that we can look at the angles. So if I knew that this angle was, say, 60 degrees, and I knew this angle was 60 degrees, and then I knew this angle was 60 degrees, and this angle was 60 degrees, I could say that by angle-angle similarity, meaning that if two angles are congruent, meaning the same, then that is going to grow at the same rate. Because basically what I show students with our hands, if we make like an angle, that length across, as I make a bigger angle, that side gets longer, and I make a smaller angle, it gets smaller. So if these angles open up the same, I can make it bigger or smaller, the same, but I can't just change it and all of a sudden it looks like a different triangle. It's going to look the same and just be bigger. So we just start looking at a different way. One's called proof by transformational geometry, and one's a proof by parts, where we actually look at the different parts and see that they're similar. And so we're kind of putting all of that together. And the reason we only need to use 2 angles is because when you add up all the angles in a triangle, it adds to 180. So we don't have to look at the third angle because we know it'll be 60 because it adds up to 180. So anyway, it's just kind of a cool thing. And this will be in high school geometry as well, and the vocabulary will help up through even college. So anyway,
cool.
That's what we're doing in 8th grade math right now.
And that could even be used in architecture,
oh,
that kind of ideas.
Sure.
I mean,
oh yeah, it's the blueprint. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice, from small to big.
Yay,
hey, go to the brain. It's time for the brain teaser, and the question in the brain teaser is, what is the branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings called?
And if you call 497-5044 and get it correct, you will win a one family fun pass to the Discovery Museum, where you can take not just one person, but your whole family.
Yes.
And that's fun, brothers, sisters, and and whoever wants to go. And so it's a very fun place to go. So good luck.
Yeah, good luck, because it's a study to make it more simple, maybe, of organisms and your relation to your environment. Organisms and their relation to the environment. So what's the name of that? Just like biology is the study of life. Bio, yeah, that's
bio, life.
Yeah, bio is life, right. So it's a good thing. Ology words are really helpful to know. Yeah, they're great. So speaking of organisms, we just saw the Aleutian cackling goose flying around. Yes, we did. And here's some other organisms related to the goose. They are called egrets. And this is basically a pothole in the fields that are surrounding the slough. So, but like you said, does it provide, when it rains enough, and when if the tide goes high enough, these guys fill up. And then they fill up with fish, and the fish might be eaten by the egrets, and the egrets carry those to different places, and yeah, it's pretty neat. And the egrets have babies, in which they're going to be really soon nesting. So I saw an osprey, which is a fish hawk, flying over with a big stick in its mouth. And I think I was on the way home from almost to the Samoa Bridge. And there it was. Nice. It was very cool. Yeah. So it's important, all that, to these organisms, the slough is. And I think we might have another picture. And this is a cool picture of just that perspective again from the bridge. And those are a bunch of shorebirds. Shorebirds like godwits and willets and whimbrels, and there's a bunch of names for these shorebirds, but they're found on the shore. They stick their beaks in that mud, and they get stuff like worms and other things to eat, crustaceans, insects, etc. So it's important for them, very important. Well, we're setting the stage for why this is so important, but sometimes people, when they see something like this, a slough, they think, well, this is a place I could just throw something because it's water and the water will carry it away. I know, that doesn't sound good. But our other slides are about 22 years ago, my husband was driving by, and he used to ride his bike through the bottoms, and he said to himself, it was horrific there. I don't know if you remember looking down. 22 years ago is a long time.
Like
it's a long time ago.
Going to Arcadia. Probably far away
not.
From Fortuna.
It's too far.
Just like,
I don't know if you'd even been there yet. Yeah. Well, if you look down in there were 3 cars that had been thrown away there.
Oh, weird.
In the slough, 3
like they just
cars. Leave them there. There were vending machines in the slough.
Wait, what?
Newspaper machines in the slough.
Then no fish could get down.
No, bags of dead animals, very sadly.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was like a dump. It was like a dump.
It was a dump. That's what it was.
No.
It was
and
horrible.
Then they can't get down. Like
they can't move. The fish can't move. And a lot of things go down there, like skates and rays. swim down there and get their food, and the crabs can't. I mean, nothing in there. It's like a giant barrier.
Oh my gosh.
So little by little, he drove his truck down, and just with the help of other people at different times, he just like took a sledgehammer, beat the cars up, took away parts and stuff like that.
How
So
awesome.
little by little, I think people would look down there and just go, "This is too terrible to even touch." You know, like where do I start here? So with the help, like I said, of others and his own, yay for Ted. Thank you, honey. We have other pictures of, I think, what I just talked about. Oh, this is these are from the dump. This is a collection of the things that every time he went there to dump the stuff off, he got another piece of paper. So there's all the different times that he would go, and he kept it in an envelope just to keep track. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's kind of crazy. The ugly guts thing that you just saw was somebody who had cleaned fish and dumped them into the slough.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which looks like, gee, that's a great place, and crabs will eat them. But the problem is this can rot, and then the bacteria eats it, and then that lowers the oxygen level in the water. So even though that looks like, hey, food, it's fine, it looks awful actually. But you know, you think the crabs would like it? Well, they would, but not this much. And so that's definitely a dump that's not good in the long run. Yeah. And yeah, how do you even deal with that? I mean, picking it up, it's kind of an awful thing. Yeah, there's just not enough birds out there to eat all that stuff.
Yeah, I know, you'd want like half of one of those or something.
Yeah, maybe one fish, not 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's a habit that it's difficult for people to break when they see
Is it a lot better?
Yes, it is. I think before we get to the better part, we're going to see some not so good parts. So we move past the fish part, then we can go to, okay, so this was after July 4th, where people all celebrate with fireworks, and there's Ted. He's just picking up some fireworks. In the next slide, we have a picture of, that was part of the dump. So you have fireworks, and you drink beer and pop and soda and things like that. And that's not the place to put that.
Oh my gosh, chairs.
I know. Yeah, chairs. There's a baby chair there, and there's just a chair from your living room kind of thing. And you don't just pick that up, you kind of got to roll it out. There's another dump of a sort where people, it's just like, oh, it's a pull out, so let's just dump the thing. Oh, this was some interesting stuff that we found. So this was in the Arcata Eye back before it was the Mad River Union. But that was a doll, a Chucky doll. I don't, you know, it's like that's a horror movie, Chucky. But it's a Bride of Chucky, I think.
Oh gosh.
I know, and that was one of the dumped items. So. Anyway, that just gives you an idea of the scope of how huge it was, because it was big. Yeah, it's crazy. So Ted worked with also Humboldt Baykeeper to put in signs that say no dumping, because this place is ecologically sensitive, and animals and plants depend on it.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Oh my gosh.
And I think those signs help, but I think the thing that helps is going every single day, just going to see if there's anything. And now there's much less stuff.
Oh, there is.
Much less stuff. Yeah, I mean, if we find, oh, there's a nice picture of, oh, well, actually in the foreground is when people, we don't find as much of this now, but these are people who are growing marijuana, and this is all their soil, which you think, oh, it's just soil, that's fine, but there's fertilizers in the soil.
And then it can make animals sick.
It can make them sick because the fertilizer goes into the water. Algae likes the fertilizer. Algae grows, algae dies, bacteria eats it, then
That's why you just don't dump anything, because
Right.
it's not supposed to be there. It's like non-native species. It's not supposed to be there.
I know.
Oh
Right,
my gosh.
it is. Well, that slide, if you could go back one slide, because that slide, one back, we're going back one. We're going back. If we go back one, you can see a sign there, and there were 3 different signs that were put up. One at the bridge, one.
There it is.
Oh yeah, cool. So and this is at a pullout. That's pretty critical.
So it says no dumping, and that was dumped in front of it?
Well, yes. That was when times were bad. When people were still, bad habits, are hard to break. So really, literally, these bad habits sometimes can take people years to break. And the best thing would be if there is a no dumping statute which says $1,000 fine, if people would actually get. The thing is, people do this in the nighttime.
Yeah.
When you
well,
don't
the recology place, I know, like you can do 3 a year. I mean, where they come and get, it could be like things like that.
Like appliances
so they actually,
for
so
free.
They actually take it.
Yeah.
So.
Back to the Brainteaser, you guys. The Brainteaser was, what is the branch of science that deals with the relations of organisms to their environment? So the organisms to the environment. What is the branch? Come on, you can do it. We know you can. Look it up. Oh, we're revealing it because we're so close to the end of the show.
I was going to guess ecology, and I was like, I don't know if that's right.
Good job. Maybe just said it. It is. Eco comes from the Greek word oikos, which means your house or your home. Yeah, the study of your house or home. Which
I didn't know,
Yeah.
But your brain started like biology, life, ecology.
Yeah.
Thought,
No, that was good. That was very good. Yeah, it's a really cool study. It's a good one and important these days, especially.
And that's why you do that, because that's why you're talking about the slough, because it's that relationship of all those animals with where they live.
Yeah, it's super important. So we're glad if you guys joined in.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Glad that you
Thank
joined
you,
in. And by joining in, we mean tuning in. So thank you so much, and it was great to have you. Thanks. See us again next week.